Welcome back to the show, everybody. Listen to these headlines. We got some NFT news. Coinbase showing support for the Ripple case. Stuart Alderati talks tyranny from the Ripple legal team. Gary Gensler is in the news, but which Gary Gensler are we actually talking about? We're going to clear that up a little bit today, and I think it's going to leave you with more confusion, believe it or not. Senators starting to ask, could crypto become a global reserve currency? I think that answer is a yes, long run. Spanish banks ready for new regulations, we'll explain. And how about BAKKT in the MasterCard relationship? How about BAKKT in that IPO? Whoa, up over 300% last night. SEC has significant gains over Oversight in the digital asset space. We'll tell you where and exactly what it is. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow me on Twitter at @BackupBradleyAbove, and everything that we're talking about here today. $2.628 trillion market cap is where we sit, and that is new money into the space right now. Bitcoin 62,500 plus, Ethereum 4,200 plus, up from this morning a bit here. Cardano at 217, Solana, at 207, and that is plus. And XRP is 111 this morning. And let's take a look at the range right quickly. So 109.02 is the low side of XRP price range. 113 flat is where we are for the top, and we will keep an eye on it. We know that people are really technical analysts are really pointing towards some kind of imminent breakout, as they say, and I'm excited for it. I have room for it on the calendar. I am not going to push it away, and I will be excited when it gets here. All right, looking right here, the news for NFTs just got bigger, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to think of this for a moment. Photoshop will get a prepare as NFT option soon. Adobe is looking to fight NFT art theft with content credentials. This functionality will be built into Photoshop with a prepare as NFT option launching in new preview by the end of this month. Now, what do you think that's going to do for NFTs, ladies and gentlemen? That is incredible. That's like one of these applications of this technology that I hadn't even thought of. To integrate it with something like Photoshop. See how quickly that just turns things upside down? Everything will be different going forward with these things. I think it's remarkable, and I've been focused so heavily on it and how it could change the music industry, and it's really already started to, and there's so many people in the music industry excited about NFTs, as I am too. Looking right here from Hall of Famer Michael, it's better late than never, and well said by Michael. We did cover this earlier, but I just want to highlight this, that Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, has finally displayed support for the Ripple in its fight against the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And I believe that this really stems from and I don't want to say late game awareness on Brian Armstrong. He's a smart guy, and he meets with people in D.C. and all of this all the time. But publicly, for him to come out now and recognize that what is happening in the SEC versus Ripple case is pertinent to all cryptos in the entire crypto space. So good on Brian Armstrong for taking that public comment there. Here's another one that is really great, and it is Stuart Alderati who really lays it down. He says here, sound familiar? SEC asks for and gets voluntary cooperation. Number 2, SEC next without explanation threatens enforcement. 3, SEC doesn't get unconditional surrender, so it ramps up intimidation and aggression. And this is what it's based on, because it says in other countries that's called tyranny. We must be better. The lawsuit asks, in this thing about Terraform Labs, CEO Dao Quan is suing the SEC now because the lawsuit asks for the subpoenas to be considered illegally served for damage payments, including attorney's fees and further relief for Quan and Terra as the court deems appropriate. You know, more intimidation tactics by the SEC in this matter. And I think that he nailed it. I tagged the proper people there. And, you know, I even tagged Gary Gensler because you have have the power to do better. Let's do better for American innovation right now, not tomorrow. And I really do believe that is what we're talking about here. And we do need to keep a more lofty look at what's going on and not be so directed at the SEC versus Ripple case. But that case represents so much. American innovation is being stifled right now. And it goes and speaks to Ripple's customer base and how they're scared to join if they're in the United States. And everyone's scared to get involved with XRP to a certain degree because we don't have the clarity, and they've been Ripple has been victim of these intimidation tactics exactly the way he laid out here. Now, this is Senator Rand Paul who's getting ready to set the tone for the next part of this conversation. Senator Rand Paul says this, and let's let him tell it to you.
Here's what I've started to believe now is that the government currencies are so unreliable. They're also fiat currencies. They're not backed by anything. The dollar's been more stable than most other countries, and so it is the reserve currency.
By the way, this is the spiel that made you a rock star with young people during your presidential campaign.
Well, I've started to question now whether or not cryptocurrency could actually become the reserve currency of the world as more and more people lose confidence in government. Here's what I've started to...
How about that one? How about that one? Now, I know early on, he may have changed his position, but I know early on, at least at some point, he has said he thought that could even be Bitcoin. He talks about Bitcoin. I think we know that Bitcoin is not going to be a payment solution at its current state. Now, that doesn't mean it can't run for that game later and that title later, but not now. Right? But I do believe this speaks to the path that XRP is on to serve as a bridge currency to the world. And remember, for those of you that have been out here a long time and you're seasoned investors in this space, and specifically with XRP and Ripple, understand that there are hundreds of people joining this channel every day. So some of the things that you hear that are repetitive or overlapping are also because there are so many new people joining the channel trying to get to where all of you, the rest of you are. So when I say these things, you understand. So when I look at this, and I do understand the ultimate goal is bridge currency destination. And guess who else does too? And shout out to Green Side of the Moon on this. This is a comment here. Gary Gensler, you could use blockchain, but you need a bridge currency in between. That bridge currency could be a stable value that's backed by US dollar or the euro, or it could be a currency like Ripple. Well, you know what? I even remember covering the clip on here a long time ago. And let's take a listen to it.
So one idea that's been, let's say Mexico, if it's between the US and Mexico. So one idea that's been around, it's widely associated with Ripple, but it's not only associated with Ripple, is this simple chart. What if I move fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat? Is this called a bridge crypto or bridge currency? I can sort of say I can go from US dollars to Bitcoin or XRP. You fill in the middle and then move over to the other fiat, Mexican peso in my example. And might that take some cost out of the system? We have Sean's issue earlier of volatility. If the crypto is fluctuating a lot, that causes some issues. If there's a lot of cost or friction, because now you're doing two currency exchanges, not one. I'm calling crypto a currency for this purpose. I know that crypto is not technically a currency, but for this moment, let me just call it, you have two currency exchanges, and thus you have two bid-ask spreads to pay. Just the market makers, you need to pay the bid-ask spreads twice. And you have some volatility if the middle crypto is moving around.
Now, you get the gist of it. He's showing you that he understands what the purpose of Ripple is for. Now, let me bring you to this moment now. Okay, so if you saw this video from this morning, stay with me here. This is a clip I got from the 2018 summit, and it's Bank XRP. Shout out to you. And I want to play you this clip, and it's not the entire thing that you heard from this morning. So stay with me here. I want you to hear this clip, and then we're going to talk about the Gary Gensler's comments about XRP being a bridge currency and some comments that happened inside of this clip. Listen.
Be able to make all these payments around the world. I see. It's kind of a long answer to your short question.
It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. So, just I realized something. You call it digital assets. You don't say cryptocurrency or...
Notice that the speaker here, the interviewer, is asking him, I noticed that you call it digital assets. You don't call it crypto or something else, right? And he says that's deliberate. Listen.
Crypto assets or anything. Is there a reason for that? I'm just asking. I mean, you don't need to...
No, very deliberately.
Maybe a company policy.
No, very deliberately, yes.
Very deliberately, yes. Now keep listening here, please.
So we have positioned XRP really as a digital asset for use by financial institutions, really on a wholesale basis. So right now, the XRP ledger is a public ledger.
Right now. In other words, he's saying right now, which means that can change. That's why he's highlighting right now, right? He didn't say, now forevermore, the XRP ledger is a public exchange. He said right now, right? Keep listening.
It is really a ledger of liabilities.
A ledger of liabilities. Well, you know, we talk a lot here lately about Gary Gensler, and when he's asked why he believes he should have jurisdiction over crypto assets, he cites the Howey test and he cites the Reeves test. Now, I don't think, you know, maybe I spoke to the home and I'm going back. I don't know how this goes, but I don't know why this is not catching to more people than it is, but we need to get this out to more people. This Reeves test, I believe, is very important, because it determines when something is a note, right? And when something is a note, a lot of times that can be a debt obligation. Well, if you and I are entering into a payment between one another and using XRP as a bridge currency, you could see that as a debt obligation in that transfer of that asset and that two-sided fiat exchange that Gary Gensler was mentioning there. And in order to create the accountability and reliability of that note, it gets that very designation, right? And aren't banks comfortable with the instruments that they currently use? Isn't it true that banks are not innovators? That's right. That's why we hear so much that government is not either. And that's why we hear so much about public-private relationships. But let's keep listening for a second here, because he's talking about a debt obligation represented on the ledger. It's very simple, just like any other ledger, a paper book ledger even.
So what I mean by that is you can take money from somebody and issue a balance on the Ripple ledger.
You're creating a note, is it not? Let's listen here.
It's called the Howey test. There's other broad brushes with regard to this as well. As to when something is a note, called the Reeves test that they're
called the Reeves test, Thurgood Marshall a few decades ago. You know, he's explaining what banks, I believe, financial institutions, sophisticated financial institutions that he talks about using this asset wholesale back in, would see this as if you were a bank or a sophisticated financial institution. Not necessarily a retail investor, but a sophisticated financial institution. He's explaining the definition of a note. And if you don't believe me, check it out. So here's the definition right here from Investopedia. A note is a debt security obligation repayment of a loan at a predetermined interest rate with a defined time frame. Notes are similar to bonds, but typically have an earlier maturity date than other debt securities such as bonds. Notes can be used as currency. And by the way, for those of you freaking out about the security word in there, you can understand this, that notes that are less than 9-month maturity are non-securities. That could play into this. So let's go back to this, because I want you to hear the rest of this clip here.
You can take gold, or, you deposit gold with somebody, and you can issue a balance in gold on the.
And that would be issued in the form of a note, probably represented by the token XRP for that particular asset that's just been put up, whether it be cash or gold, as he mentioned. That's how I'm understanding this.
Ripple ledger. So any kind of a liability that you have can be issued on the Ripple ledger. The validation of transactions is through consensus. So the use of XRP is probably threefold. I guess I told you about two of them already as substitute for Nostros as a bridge currency. And initially, it was also a mechanism to stop denial of service attacks on the network.
So there you go. And what do we know about stopping attacks on the network? We saw the oil pipeline. We saw the meat producer. We saw GameStop market manipulation and so many other things. This year alone proved to all of us that the market infrastructure is vulnerable and antiquated. Now, he just touched on everything. And then you talk about also, he talks about the Nostro Vostro accounts, right? What does that really tell us, too? That it's all designed back end to serve those large financial institutions. And what was the other thing he said here? I just want to hear it very quickly here. Check it out.
Sure. It is really a ledger of liabilities.
It is really a ledger of liabilities, which would mean they're issuing notes on these liabilities or these potential debt obligations, right? Yeah. And if it's less than a 9-month term on it, it might be considered a non-security, not even a discussion, based on the Reeves test that he keeps telling us about, which he uses as his defense every time he's in a congressional hearing, as he is here, or whether he's on mainstream media. The Howey test and the Reeves test are his safe haven. Like, don't hate on me. I'm just doing what that says, right? So there it is. Looking right here, we see that things continue to expand around the world. Spanish banks are ready to comply with new regulations to offer through compliant AML directives derived from other laws, the upcoming regulations, and mandate the Bank of Spain to formulate a list of virtual asset service providers and custody companies. Really great stuff. And so is this. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, I had many emails and direct messages I got on this, and shout out to all of you. MasterCard has partnered with US-based digital asset marketplace BAKKT to make it easier for merchants, banks, and fintechs in the U.S. to offer cryptocurrency solutions and services. And I have to tell you, I did buy some BAKKT on a whim. I didn't get as much because I did it on Robinhood, and I had to let some money clear. It was the first time I bought anything on there, and it was a great experience. But nevertheless, I did get some, and I bought it at $10. And don't you know, last night it went well over $50. I was up 330-some%. I should have sold because it went back down, and obviously the big boys sold, and it went back down to $26, wherever it is right now. But nevertheless, look, I'm happy to be in it, and I'm going to continue to accumulate, and it's not financial advice. But if you got on the back train, you had a great day yesterday, and literally I just got in Friday, so it was pretty awesome. That doesn't happen to me often. Okay, so now let's look here, because the SEC seems to be gaining even more significant oversight in the crypto space, and it relates to stablecoins this time around. And here's the angle they're going to go with that. Check this out right here. So as it appears, the Treasury Department and other agencies are reportedly planning to release a report this week that will indicate that the SEC has significant authority to regulate fiat-pegged cryptos. Remember, there's many different kinds of stable coins, right? Algorithmic stable coins, fiat-backed, that's all of this. So in the regard to fiat-pegged cryptos, the report will also urge Congress to pass legislation specifying coins that should be regulated similarly to bank deposits, one of the people said. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler has reportedly pushed for the changes behind closed doors. He is further seeking to clarify that they will take a more active role in stablecoin regulation in the short term, according to the report. Meanwhile, the agency is awaiting legislative changes in the long term. I do want to come down here and remind you as well, in tandem, we have Omarova, who is now the new head of the OCC, and she plans on covering cryptos from the OCC chair this year, and let's see how that works in tandem with Gary Gensler's reign. The other point I wanted to make about this is really I wanted to make the point that I don't see any other agency pushing back on Gary Gensler and saying, hey, Gary, you're out of your lane, man. Right? In fact, we know that Benham from CFTC, because Gary Gensler told us, is working very closely with him, and they have a plan worked out even if Congress doesn't move forward. So there's no pushback from him. And that bothers me, right? The CFTC should be overseeing a large part of this market, and they should have a much bigger voice. Certainly a much bigger voice than this one right here. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is claiming that a wealth tax, an unrealized capital gains levy, is on its way to Congress as early as this week after striking an agreement on spending plan in the House. Well, look here. This is a problem. And it's a problem because a lot of us out here may become extremely wealthy over the next few years. And I don't know that for sure, but I believe in certain instances it's going to happen because I've already seen it happen to certain people now. So, I believe it will continue to take place. The question is, will you find yourself, and myself included, hopefully, find ourselves having to pay taxes on unrealized capital gains? In other words, if I buy something for $1,000 and then it goes to $10,000 and I haven't cashed it out, that I still have to pay taxes on those unrealized gains that I have not done a thing with. That is crippling. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, this is not good. And Janet Yellen aligns with this because we covered yesterday morning her saying exactly the same thing. So as we move into this space, we got to keep our head on a swivel, keep a macro view on what's going on. Regulations are coming. We just got to be very careful about which ones. And when it comes to taxes, make sure you're really paying attention because none of us want to get buried from our wealth portfolio. That would be like a nightmare scenario. And one of the best ways to do that, ladies and gentlemen, before I get out of here, is Clinton Donnelly. Click the link in the description box if you haven't. He has incredible programs set up for every level of involvement that you'd like to be in your taxes. So if you want him as a client or as a tax representative, he can do it. If you just want to learn how to do it yourself, he has very good products for that as well. So make sure you check out those links and all the others and hit the like and subscribe, and I'll catch all of you on the next one.